Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we strive to learn how to stop doing deals and start closing customers for life. We have a great show for you today and an amazing guest. Anne is here with us, folks. She's going to rock the house. That being said, Anne, great to have you with us. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. So rather than me butchering it and not doing nearly as good a job as you would, Anne, why don't you tell everybody what it is you do?
So I am an entrepreneur. I tell people I like to create and build experiential brands that make people's lives better. So I've been spending majority of my time and space and energy in the health and fitness world. Started a nonprofit back in 2007 that I ran for 6.5 years that uses running as a vehicle to help people who are experiencing homelessness change their identity so that we can change the direction of their life and get them jobs and homes by first starting on their emotional well-being. And then transitioned out of that and started a company called Solidcore, which is for all intents and purposes athletic Pilates, and have been building and growing that over the last 9 years. We now have 91 locations around the country. And then stepped down as CEO April, I guess now, almost 18 months ago, April 2021, and now sit in the exec chair role for Solidcore and just really help with strategy and leading the board. And I'm starting a new company called Ambition, which is another fitness and wellness company that will open in New York in like 8 weeks. So been a little busy.
It seems like the plate is very full. So you're rocking the health and wellness space. What got you into that?
Yeah, I've been working out my entire life, and I just know how good that all feels. You know, it didn't have from the beginning. I remember when I was 12 years old, and I had a crush on this kid, and he told my friend he thought I was fat. So unfortunately, like that was my start of working out. And I think a lot of women, we get into it for maybe the wrong reasons. And I had to work through my own, body issues and things like that for years. As again, I know a lot of other women have as well. But then I just started to discover my own confidence through working out and how working out makes me do the things that I want to do every day. I'm 42 now, and I don't feel whatever 42 is supposed to feel like. My body feels the same as it did when it was 20. And so I understand the benefits of having a healthy relationship with moving your body and putting the right things in it. And I just am very bullish on it is the thing to make massive change in people's lives. If we don't feel good physically, mentally, it's really hard for us to show up in quality relationships, for us to accomplish big things. It's the table stakes of where to put time and energy to get you prepared to have a very fulfilling and happy life.
I agree, and I come at it very much talk about something very similar from a different perspective, which is my primary piece of business equipment is myself. And if I take care of my primary piece of equipment, how can I expect to get out of it what it's capable of doing? It's just unreasonable. And so if it was a car, I'd have to change the oil, put gasoline in it all the time. I would do that. I know I have to do that or it's going to break. It's the same thing. We're just bad bosses to ourselves.
Yeah, it's really wild. I mean, the statistics are staggering, right? Only 23 or something % of US adults get enough exercise. And every state has more than 20% of a population that is obese. From the lack of movement to how things have evolved, we sit all day, to the amount of crap we put in our bodies and processed foods. And Yeah, I think it's like anything else where you might not, people are so focused on immediate gratification that the food has to taste a certain way in order for us to eat it. And food is supposed to be fuel. Like I make this joke all the time. I don't love eating broccoli. Like it doesn't taste that great, but like I do
It
it
doesn't.
anyway. Yeah, it's like I'm not eating it for the taste. It's not a pleasure experience for me. I'm trying to put food in my body that's going to keep my brain operating, my organs operating, and my body, so I can do the things that I want to do. And everything doesn't have to taste like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I mean, I know for me, I started out as a power lifter years ago, and then I had to switch to bodybuilding because powerlifting, as it turns out, is not the healthiest diet in the universe. It's how much can you put in.
Right.
I was
Right.
really good at putting it in. And so
Right.
like the hierarchy was like, I never minded the working out so much. The cardio, the dieting, that was always the one. I'm a fat kid at heart. It's so hard to say no, cookies, And so that's always been the struggle. But I mean, I've learned, especially like when it comes to breakfast and lunch, that's just work for me. Like, yeah, it's just something I do, like I
Right.
don't eat this. I pile it in, the shake with the oatmeal, with the whatever, or whatever's got to go in there, clean. I don't even think about it as food. It's just, hey, this is the next thing I got to do the next thing that I got to.
Yeah. And Josh, for anybody listening that has struggled with that, the thing that I have found works well for me and advice given other people is take the options off the table. Like I eat the same thing every day. It sounds like you do too. Like I don't be like, what am I going to eat today? It's already figured out and planned. And then your body starts to crave it and wants it. And like, I don't have any gut issues. My body feels great. I'm not lethargic. Like when you take the options off the table, you also take energy away from another decision you have to make. It's very powerful.
It can be. It's like wearing a uniform when you have to wear a uniform to work every day. Well, it's one less thing I got to think about. I'm not accessorizing.
Yeah.
These shirts, these pants, done, and
Yeah.
out the door. And so, no, it is a thing. And there is something to that bandwidth idea that there's only so much bandwidth that you have as a person, and allocating that in the best ways as you can. I mean, food is near and dear to a lot of our hearts. And so it's a tough thing, but
yeah. And that's like willpower too. We only have a limited amount of willpower. And as the day goes on, you lose it. That's why people really like try to hone in on morning routines. It's much easier to execute in the morning when you're rested, when you're fresh and doing the things where if you were waiting for the gym at the end of the day, that's when like, oh my gosh, you're tired. Do you really want to? The debate, the negotiation starts to enter.
For a lot of people, it's true. For me, I was always the outlier on that one. I tried to be the morning gym guy. I could never do it. I'm awful in the gym. I mean, and the thing was like, I was a power lifter. Like, so I had the charts, and I mean, I would just lift less. I wasn't as strong. I wasn't as good. And I don't know why. It was like your testosterone level. No, it's not for me. I don't know. I'm that weirdo. But from, 6 o'clock on, I'm a rock star. 6 o'clock in the afternoon on, I'm at my best.
Yeah. And you know that about yourself and it works for you. And if you can stay committed to do it, that's awesome.
That's my shtick. But for most people, you're absolutely right. They got to front load the day. You got to front load the day, get the nasty nuts out of the way so that you can, get that nice downhill slide going if you can. So what do you think? This is probably really what we need to get to. Where do you think all the success came from for you, Anne?
I think we're always chasing emotions, right? And for a long time, and even now, I haven't have it all figured out, but like I associate a lot of achievement, with love, and I'm still working on that through therapy. But once you start seeing what your talents are and what you're able to do, I sort of even see it as an obligation of like, this is what my gifts are, and it would be a shame to waste them. Like, I know that I'm really good at creating and building and scaling. And I choose to put that energy into things that are hopefully going to make people's lives better around the health, fitness, and wellness, space. And it's the positive feedback loop, Josh, when you do something. And I get a real dopamine hit of figuring things out, of problem solving. And so putting myself in situations that are new is really comfortable for me in a weird way. And it's one of the pieces of advice I give folks who want to be entrepreneurs. I tell them to look at their life and really get granular and think about where they've taken risk. Because if you can't come up with anything, you're never going to start the business. That's just like too far of a leap. You need things like go have dinner by yourself, like feel uncomfortable with that. Have you been living in the same place the last, 20 years? Have you ever moved cities? Have you ever made new friends, gone to someplace by yourself where you felt uncertainty and discomfort? And just like risk taking, it's practice. And same with rejection. You've got to practice these things to get good at them. It's not like the people you see didn't have to go through that. They just continued to put themselves in those situations where it didn't feel so scary.
Yeah, no, they made themselves comfortable with it. I mean,
Right.
it's really always exposure, and it's just like anything else. It's a muscle. I mean, I remember the first time I had a trainer and he had me do shoulders, and I was pretty sure like the next day that life was going to end, because I didn't realize just how many things I use my shoulders for every single day. And so I was like 16 years old, and it's the first time I ever did it. And everything, I mean, like, you do abs, and abs suck, but you learn workarounds to get around when your abs are destroyed, right? And legs, they're bad, but you could stand still and it's not too bad. But your shoulders, my God, everything I was using my shoulders all the time. Now I'm at the place I can't get my shoulders sore no matter what I do, pretty much. I mean, I've just done them so long and whatever. And I say this just because you become acclimated to the suck, if you will. I mean, it never stops sucking, but it doesn't suck so much, and you're kind of used to it, and it's not a big deal. And so exposing yourself to that and realizing these are the life skills. Look, when you learn to read, it wasn't a pleasant thing at the beginning either. You're sounding the words out, and it didn't go smoothly, but you got better. And life is this process of getting better, of constantly trying to chase. And I loved what you said, that sense of vocation that you have, that, hey, look, I've got these gifts, I've got these tools, I got to use the hell out of them while I got them.
Yeah.
So I love that. It's awesome stuff. Awesome sauce.
Yeah. And as adults, I feel like we stop learning a lot. We feel like I remember, I can think about times when I've asked people, like, do you want to go snowboarding? I'm like, I don't know how. And I'm like, that's not what I asked, right? We just sort of think if I didn't learn by a certain age, it's off the table for me. And the real, there's no shortcut to it, but I truly believe the path to happiness and fulfillment is this continued like learning and growing and figuring things out. Like it's very empowering and it builds your confidence. And that's where new experiences come from. Like when there's that nervousness or that feeling of uncertainty, you feel alive. Like when I go speak on stage, I still get nervous, and I love that feeling. It shows that like all my cylinders are firing.
Yeah, no, that's when you feel like you're at your best, when you're conquering those personal mountains.
Yeah.
It's definitely a drug of its own, and it's a healthy one, because you're becoming a better version of you, a version of you that you respect more, and that self-respect is so important. God, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say the process of all of that. I think you ask 100 people if they want to grow, and everybody's like, yeah, of course I do. But what people don't enjoy and what stops them from growing is the process of it. They want the outcome of like, yeah, I want to be this person. I'd love to be the person who's super fit, but how to get there, how to the effort, the process. It's like starting a company or anything. When people say they want to start X company, I'm like, well, do you understand what the day-to-day operations of running this company look like? Because that's what you have to enjoy. It's not the outcome. The outcome is a byproduct of embracing the process of getting there. And that once you get to that place, you don't stop the process. You keep going. And I think a lot of people miss that mark. They just want I want to be married, have 2.2 kids, have a great marriage, have a huge house, have this and that. But, there's a lot of work to get there.
It is. And it's work on you. And, one of the best things, especially talking about that topic, I remember there was a single group that I used to have that met at my house, and we talk about it, and everybody was looking for that right person. And as I got older, I said, I'd rather focus on being the kind of person I need to be in that kind of relationship, because I got to get me right to deserve that, and most people want it to come to them pre-baked, ready to go, ready to eat. And the reality of it is, we came into this world crapping all over ourselves, eating with our hands. We learned to use silverware. We learned to use bathrooms. We had to grow. The idea that culture puts out there that you're a perfect snowflake the way you are, I'm sorry, my life has all been changed from the beginning. And so I got to get into that, dive into that, both feet, head first, as hard as I can, as fast as I can, because all the rest of that time I'm losing. And here's the real thing, Anne, as I look back, when I really got my head around that, all I could do is look back with regret at the time that I lost when I didn't realize that. And I let the pain, I try to make that pain and keep that pain as fresh as I can to keep me from ever falling back to that. Because, I had this time that I could have used that I didn't. I could have been this and I'm not now because I wasted this time. And really learning to take it and be at peace with the fact that, hey, it's a past, you can't do anything about it. But I don't want to feel that again.
Yeah.
To stay on track is, this healthy balance that I think we have to have. It's a lot of what I talk about in my book on, of all things, real estate. It is getting in that state of mental equilibrium where you have this good relationship with yourself of, hey, look, this is our history. We don't want to repeat this. This is what we're going to do with ourselves going forward because I'm responsible for me.
Yeah. And complacency is the ultimate killer, right? When we just rest on our laurels. And I hate that, like, oh, you're perfect the way you are. I despise some of that stuff too. Like, it's even in relationships, it's work, it's every day, it's showing up. It doesn't mean it can't be fun, but I think about how I've grown in relationships over the years, and it's so easy to think back to the woman I was in my 20s and even my early 30s, and how much blame I would always place, it's the other person, it's this, it's that. And now whenever there's conflict, the first thing is like, what's my responsibility here?
100%.
Yeah. And when you start to take responsibility and empower, and you see different perspectives, and you go into something with wanting to fix it rather than wanting to be right, wanting to, learn and listen and hear the other person's perspective instead of advocating for you to be heard. It's everybody knows, and we say these things out loud and it makes sense, but the real test is when you're in the situations, when your emotions are high, and if you can rewire your brain in a way that's going to serve you and any relationships, whether it's work, friends, parental, your intimate partner and whatnot.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's this healthy way. Because look, the best way to live the best life is to be truly introspective, to take and really be working on your relationship with you. Like, how do I work with me to get me to do? Because look, I want to eat the double stuffed Oreos. I'm not going to lie. There is a part of me that definitely wants those cookies. And there's a part of me that knows I shouldn't have the cookies. And those two sides do war all the time. There's a part of me that wants to take, and I know I'm right. I want to feel justified in my position.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that knows that the relationship itself is more valuable than that. And I have to take and say no to myself. I break it into the staff and the CEO all the time. The staff employee wants to feel good. They want a paycheck today. The CEO wants to build a business going into the future. So those are the two sides of me that are constantly doing war in this whole thing, and figuring out how to delay gratification, how to invest, because I am an investor. I run an investment fund. This is what I do, right? How do I invest in the decision right now to make a better outcome for me in the future, as opposed to the decision that's going to take and pay me right now some reduced amount, because the employee is always getting a reduced amount. They're taking a risk averse position. I take risk. It's what I do. I'll delay gratification for the bigger payoff down the road because I want the big payday. I want to take and get as much out of this, squeeze as much out of this thing as I can. Otherwise, I'll go take a job with somebody. Chick-fil-A is hiring, I hear. So, right, I can go over there and take a job for somebody else.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, which is a delayed gratification, Josh. And we live in a world today where immediate gratification is all around us, with our phones, with Amazon delivered tomorrow. Anything you want, you can have it now. And that doesn't, for those people who have the patience for the delayed gratification, those are the people who make it. Solidcore's been operating for 9 years. We hope to have an exit this year, but like, that doesn't happen in year one, day one. And I think we like look at these YouTubers who like, oh my God, this person made this channel and they're all of a sudden a millionaire. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to create a YouTube channel. Like, we always highlight the anomalies, and it tricks people's brain into thinking that like success can happen overnight. And if it doesn't happen overnight, it's not worth it. It is a slow build, and it's a consistency of showing up, and exactly that, of knowing that this is years down the road. Like, when you're making decisions about whether health or, I have a friend who recently quit drinking alcohol, and he's like 45 days in, he's like, I haven't lost a pound. I'm like, you've been drinking for the last 24 years. And like, you want all this credit for not drinking for 45 days and like, don't understand why you don't have a 6-pack abs and like have the body of your dreams after that. It's getting really comfortable with like, it's a slow build.
Well, I mean, if you watch a movie like The Pursuit of Happiness, right, and think about, if he had just walked in and gotten the job right away, oh, wow, it's a good day. But the reason why at the end of that movie, he's almost in tears is because of all that he put in to get there.
Yeah.
The best things in life had to be fought for. And you got to fight like hell. You got to find something inside of yourself and fight deep and hard, because when you win, when you get it, that's the ultimate. The pursuit is part of the enjoyment. You can look back and say, hey, look, I got this thing and I earned it the hard way. And that's where value comes from. The kids whose parents give them the BMW when they turn 16, they take it around the pole because they don't give a crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I tell my nieces and nephews, I don't have kids yet. But I'm like, I'm not leaving anything to you guys. Like I will spend money with you. Like I'm taking my niece to Taylor Swift, my 2 nieces, Taylor Swift, but like, there's nothing coming from you. And I will not strip you of your ambition and of your drive. And there's nothing like you think I'm being whatever mean, or why wouldn't I do that? I won't take that from you. Like, I want you to earn it on your own in the same way that I would have felt if I inherited X amount of money. I don't want it that way. Like, there is the gratification and the joy of feeling like you worked and you did a good job. And money for me, Josh, I'm sure it's the same for you as an entrepreneur. It's a trophy. Like I'm not a materialistic person, but it's a trophy because it shows I did a good job and I built something that has a lot of value and is meaningful to a lot of people. And it just happens to be worth a lot of money because those things were the leaders in why I was building the company.
Yeah, no, it is a reflection of people choosing with their hard-earned money to take and reward you for what the product that you brought to market. They see that kind of value in it. And that is a good thing. It's literally a reflection of lives that you've made better by the work that you've done.
Yeah.
Nobody puts a gun to people's head and makes them spend money, right? People have that choice, and then making the choice to take and honor you for the work that you put in, for the product that you've created. To me, that's always one of the best things that's out there, because, people work hard for their money.
Yeah. And that's again, delayed gratification. It's like the marathon. When you finish running a marathon, the marathon feels good, but you're celebrating all of the work that you put in to actually be able to do that. The sacrificing on the Sunday mornings, the food or whatever you might have done, the aching legs, all of these things. It's the whole package of it that makes you feel so fulfilled. And the marathon just happens to be, the icing on top of the cake of the whole process.
Absolutely. I call it the BST, the blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's at. And so, like, if that's the thing, and this is, I will paraphrase one of my favorite pieces of literature. If we know where the goal is, right? If we know where the goal is, and we know how good it feels to get there, why wouldn't we take and strip off everything that slows us down and strain to the finish? Sprint for all we're worth, with all we got. Why wouldn't we? It makes no sense to do anything less. But the problem is, and this is what I keep coming to. On paper, it all makes perfect sense. And most people, I think, get it. But the day-to-day, the living of life makes cowards of us all.
It's exactly as you said. It's the mundane decisions. Again, talking about food, like, stop looking at food as pleasure. Start looking at food, and that's really difficult for people, to do that. If food is your issue, if whatever it is, it's the day-to-day consistent decisions that actually end up giving you the result that you want. And they can look bored. I mean, I go to bed most nights by 9:30. It's like, that's what I'm choosing to do because that sets me up for success. And waking up in the morning and working out and doing all these things doesn't sound very exciting, but like, it's the consistency over and over again and making those decisions which have contributed to my success. And I think, Josh, people just have to decide. You don't have to want what I want. People don't have to want what you want. And it's getting clear on what you want your life to look like. and if the decisions you're making are actually contributing to that life. You don't have to want money. You don't have to want to start a company, but figuring out and getting clear on what your goals are, and if the lifestyle and the choices that you're making are contributing to those things or not.
It's the book that I just finished writing, that was really, the first part of the book was really about that, figuring out what the standards you're going to have for life are about. What is this life going to be about? Because people get the decisions, and if you fail to plan, you should plan to fail, right? I'm going to come up to these decisions, and gee, I could go left or I could go right. Well, if I have no other information, flip a coin, go left or right. But if I know what this life is about, I can ask the question when I get to that crossroads, which one brings me closer to what I think this life is supposed to be about?
Yeah.
Should I have the broccoli casserole or the double cheeseburger? Well, if this life is about pleasure in the moment, cheeseburger down it is.
Yeah.
If I want something different. And so figuring out what you think is on the other side of the forest, what's going to get there. And then it's easier to navigate your way between the trees.
Yeah.
Because you're going that way. But you got to first figure that out. And so what you're saying there makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
So,
your vision for your life, exactly that. If you don't have a strong enough vision, Josh, you won't make the right decision because you don't care enough. It's not meaningful. It's not important to you. But if you've got kids, a wife or a husband or whatever, and that you're making decisions for those reasons, those are real big motivators. And so figuring, and it doesn't have to just be one thing, but you have to figure out why you really want something, because if you don't, you'll make the easy decision in the moment. It's always going to win. It's always going to be the cheeseburger, because you really don't really want to be fit. Being fit is less important than the pleasure of the food. And again, that's okay. I'm not telling people how to live their life, but that's where people feel like, I think they get in trouble with what they say they want versus how they show up.
And one of the interesting things I have, and this is kind of something I've been noodling around, and it's far from codified, but it's rolling around. It's the next idea, I think. And there is this idea of legacy. Because a lot of people won't do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They should value themselves. They should have enough self-respect that they do it for themselves, but a lot of people don't and won't. But I know that, there's intentional legacy. There's people that we take under our wings that we kind of like, let me show you how to do this kind of thing. But that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the unintentional legacy folks. The folks that come to you years later and say, I worked with you back when, and I remember you were this way, and that changed the way that I do everything. Those folks, you're leaving a legacy behind you of your actions and what people take from that. And that can change people's lives and affect them and everything that they do. And the other half of that is, I'm a believer that, there's something after this life, and that, people have gone past. I am their legacy. These folks that went before, these folks that poured into me, that took time, and my behavior is what determines whether or not their investment was a good one or not.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I love buying into that idea and what we're leaving behind and what we're creating and showing an opportunity. And I think if you can live life in a way where that's that sense of obligation, that it's not just about you, it's about what you're putting out into the world and how we're making it a little bit better. Or, I love when people email me and like, oh my God, Anne, you're such an inspiration. I want to build a company like you did. I now am an example for them of, she did it. She's giving me permission to do it. And I have proof that someone else has done it, that either looks like me, didn't come from money, grew up in North Dakota, had a dad who's an addict, something that shows that it's possible. And I also take that very seriously, of trying to be an example for people to live the life that they want to live on their own terms. And whatever that means for them, the more people that do that, we feel like we can step in and be our most authentic self.
It's a very rewarding thing. I think the reason why I say that that's so important is because sometimes the decisions between going the right way and the wrong way, you're on the edge. Like it's been a long day and you've gotten your butt kicked all day long, and the package of Oreos is right there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that little bit of extra, because you should do it for yourself, but remembering that it's not just about you, that it's bigger than you. I think that's got a little bit of fuel in that tank for those times when it's been particularly rough, because this life can get that way at times. And I don't know, it's just something I'm rolling around in. I can't tell you it's fully formed, but I got a chance to talk to you about it, so I toss it out there.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. I like it.
So what do you like best about what you do, Anne?
I like knowing I'm building and creating things that make people's lives better and more fulfilled. And I still, again, I still love when people stop me in the studio or on the street and had an experience with solidcore, like, oh my God, I couldn't work out because my back, and solidcore's fixed my back, or I have so much more confidence. This community has meant so much to me. Back on my feet members whose lives are different, and I can stop and reflect and be like, man, if I didn't take that risk, if I thought I was too scared to start that company, like these are big parts of people's lives and they wouldn't exist. Like, that's really rewarding for me. And that's what keeps me of taking the risks and knowing of putting my ideas out there and putting the time and energy into building community, which is one thing I think I do best, a community of support that helps people be the best version of themselves, is just, again, super rewarding to me. And that positive feedback loop of people telling me that these things are meaningful to them is what keeps me going.
For every one of those, there's 10 more that you don't hear about, right?
Yeah.
And that's it's a wonderful life type stuff, what difference your life has actually made on display for you, and showing you that there's meaning to that. And that's a very good thing. It's a very good thing to take and know that your life is actually positively affecting people. So I love it. What do you think makes you good at this thing, Anne?
I think I have a pretty high emotional intelligence, and I'm self-aware, and I feel like I'm socially aware of what people are looking for and environments that people want to be in and thrive in. I feel like I have an ability to see that in people. And even from back on my feet days, right, when people are like, wait, like homeless people like running, like this doesn't make sense. And I'm just like, take the word homeless out of them. These are people. And right above food and shelter for all of us is this desire to be seen, appreciated, loved, and cared for. And realizing that that's why these guys are coming out of that shelter every morning at 5:30 to run. We have given them a support system of a group of people who are waiting for them, want to see them, are rooting for them, are doing the work with them, connecting with them. They feel seen. And so that's why they keep coming back here. They're feeling good about themselves. And I think that's what the majority of us are looking for. I mean, the number one reason people leave their jobs is because their boss is an asshole and they don't feel appreciated, respected. They don't feel like that their work matters, or they're constantly being criticized. And that's why we leave relationships, right? That's why we leave friends. If those people aren't making us feel filled up and respected, loved, and cared for, we find new boyfriends, we find new friends. So I think just knowing that and making sure I'm building communities that are authentic with that, and that people leave whatever space that I have my name on and feeling better about themselves than they did when they walked in.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's humanizing. There's a lot of behavior that's just dehumanizing, and criticism and all that. So yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. I'm glad you got a chance to talk about exactly what you were doing with the homeless, because I was curious about it. And so it's you made them feel more human,
right?
People that were interested in them, they cared about them. Human beings are relational beings, and providing those equal relationships is such an awesome thing. So
yeah. And Josh, you think about like how when we feel badly about who we are, or don't feel good about ourselves, the way we look, our habits, our behaviors, no positive change is going to come from somebody who's in that state. You need to start feeling confident, believing in yourself, getting the right beliefs instead of limiting beliefs, and put yourself in a position where you feel capable, where you feel things are possible, and where you feel a little deserving because of the work and effort that you're putting in. So it all starts with emotional health and well-being, and the story and the narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And that needs to be like in check before we're able to make any sort of big change in our life.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I know that I worked individually with addicts. When I had my restaurants, I had a few people that worked for me that were struggling with addiction, and I even let them come live with me for a while to try to help them get them back on their feet. And you can lead that horse to water, but unless you change that narrative, that self-narrative, that self-directed thinking, that cycle that perpetuates that, there's really nothing that you can do. And so working there, it starts with you. It starts with what you tell yourself.
Well, and Josh, on that note, for people listening, write down what your identity is. Like what is your identity of yourself to yourself? And if those things are negative of I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that. And if you're not you believe those things and not doing anything about them, they're going to stay that way. But the thing we tell ourselves about who we are, what our capabilities are, determines how your life is going to go. Like it's just that simple.
Yeah, no, I have people do a similar exercise, which is I ask them to write their eulogy. You know, what is it that people would say today, and what do you want them to say about
Yeah,
you?
great exercise.
And because, you know, if you want to figure out what do you want people to say about you when you're done, when this is all over, what do you want this life to be about? And so if you can figure that out, that's the place where the standards come from. This is the place we're taking and setting out, okay, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I want them standing over my box saying, hey, you know what? This guy was this, and this, but you know what? If this guy said something, he did it. He came through. His word was his bond. These are things to me. This is what it's got to be about, right? For me. And so figuring that out takes and gives you that end goal.
Yeah.
And then working backwards from there. How do I make the decision today to be that guy in the future?
Yeah. I know you're close to your dad. My dad always said, you know, treat people like that person is going to read your eulogy. And I always thought that was great advice, no matter who they are.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. So what are the most important things you've learned in the process of doing what you do, Anne? If you wanted to take and tell people, hey, look, this is, if my Chris lows it down to a couple of things, what would it be?
I mean, I guess that depends on if we're talking about business life, whatever, but I think an important one is my mom always said this about me, and I felt like she was being critical of just like, Anne only does what she wants to do. And I'm like, you're right. And I'm really proud of that. I don't go down paths that someone else wants me to go down. I feel like I listen to my intuition a lot on what's best for me. And both Back on My Feet and Solidcore, you know, people were just like, what are you doing? You know, you're going to start a nonprofit for the homeless and like do this for work, like your job. How are you going to get paid? And nobody saw the vision that I saw. And like, I had to trust myself, and I knew what I could do. I knew my capabilities, and I cared enough that I knew I was going to figure it out. And that's been the case on multiple times. I've been engaged twice. I've called off those engagements. You know, obviously there's gossip around that, and people talk, oh my God, another failed engagement, and, you know, want to talk about me as a person. But I'm like, I'm not going through with something because it would make you more comfortable. And so I think I'm really good at just making the right decisions for me, regardless of popular opinion or not, and knowing and learning and understanding myself. So I think that's really important too, to get really clear, because there's a lot of noise out there, Josh, more noise now than there's ever been in history, with social media, people telling you this product, this advice, the stuff that we're putting not only in our bodies, but in our minds. Be really particular about that and ask yourself, do I believe that? Do I want this? And same with societal pressures and noises as well. And I think getting really clear on the life, as we've been talking about the whole episode, that you want to live for yourself. And if the things that you're doing and the direction that you're going is in line with that North Star, great. And if it's not, it's time to make some change. And it might be a pretty lonely path. Yeah,
it can be. But then again, you can find people along the way that buy into the vision and want to take the ride with you. So it's a thing. I got to say, I mean, I so totally agree. There's just so many squirrels out there. Squirrel, you know, so many things out there to take and distract. That's for me, like, I shouldn't even say this out loud, like social media, podcasts. I don't listen to any of it. I'm like exclusively an Audible audiobook guy, and that's like my only play. Like, have you heard of this person? I'm like, no. I feel ashamed, like I should know who all these people are, but I mean, part of it is I don't want to take and borrow my stuff from anybody else. I always want it to be uniquely my own, my own content. But because, you know, like I feel like there's just so much crap out there that everybody's like saying the same thing over and over and over again, and you're trying to take and give it a fresh perspective. Because, you know, again, you're going to ask people for their money. You know, I want to give them something that's a decent part of one of the standards in life. I want to turn out a good product, right? Always, but it's a thing. So, here's one for you. Here is a 10,000-foot view question. To date, what are you most proud of in business you've accomplished?
I'm fortunate to have a long list there too. I think, I think probably the most proud thing is you could go talk to a back on my feet member, somebody who's been living in and out of homeless shelters and, had a pretty difficult path. And you can go talk to a private equity partner and be like, tell me who Anne Mahlum is. And you'd get the same answer. I feel like the way that I treat people, regardless of your status, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of, what you can do for me, has been pretty consistent. And I'm proud of that.
That's a great thing to be proud of. How about in life in general?
I mean, I feel like I've already answered that. Josh was like, I'm not afraid to live my life on the beat of my own drum.
Okay.
And I again, from North Dakota, I've moved around a lot. I'm 42. I'm not married, don't have kids. Like I've always feel like I've chosen for myself what is best for Anne, and feel like my life is really fulfilled. People all like, I'm starting this new company. People are like, why? Like, you've made so much wealth for yourself. I'm like, it's not about that. Like you think it's about the money, and it's not about the money for me. Like I want to continue to contribute in a space that I think is helping people. Like that's why I do it. And the reason that people aren't successful is because they do it for the money. And that's not a good enough reason when it gets hard to push through. But when you're doing it for people and community and improving people's lives, like it's like when COVID happened, and I know people are sick of COVID, but when COVID happened and it felt like overnight, like, wait, we have to shut down all of our studios. I remember telling my team, like, if there's anybody you want on your side in a crisis, it is me. Like, I will get us through this. I need your guys' patience and trust. I can't promise it's not going to be bumpy, but my goal, my job is to make sure that you guys all have a job to come back to after COVID is over. During COVID, I can't do much about that. We're not open, but I have to make the decisions, the difficult decisions now to lay off my entire team, and push through and constantly dealing with the different jurisdictions of what's allowed and what's not. But anyway, it was just like, I am a wartime CEO, and I will get us through that crisis because it means so much. Like it just meant too much to not figure it out.
And see, this is why I asked the question again, because we got all that cool stuff out of here. Good stuff. So, all right. You got to be the sage for a moment, the wise, the wizened sage of all times. At all this stuff, you've given such great advice to everyone, Anne, and I really appreciate it. What one piece, if you could crystallize it down to one piece of advice you'd give a listener right now, what would it be?
I would practice risk-taking and practice rejection.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. People feel like, oh, I'm just not a risk taker. And I'm like, those people that you see taking risk, they only got comfortable with it because they kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was uncomfortable the first time. I'm sure you can think of an example, Josh, of the first time of, oh my God, the self-doubt comes in, whether it doesn't work out, and over again. And then you're like, do it over and over again. You realize you can figure it out. So you get comfortable taking even bigger risks. But just like anything else, like our muscles, you have to work out those emotions. No one likes rejection. You just got to get comfortable with it.
Absolutely. No, early days of dating come to mind right away. Mm-hmm. You got to get used to the no and be okay with it. And, whatever. And so, yeah, no, it's good stuff. All right. Much more unplugged question for you. If you could recommend a book, a movie, something like that, what was one that was meaningful to you?
It's an oldie, but it's I guess there's two. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's just when you read that book and you're like, oh my God, this is so simple. And it just goes down to, again, how we treat people and how we show up, which is easy to do when everything is fine and dandy. It's hard to do when stress is high, your anger is feeling inside of you. And it's just remembering these tools. One of my favorite is seek to understand before seeking to be understood, which means listen, ask questions. There's just so many great things in that book. I reread it a lot. And then the second one, I'm a big Mark Manson fan, and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I figure I can say that on your podcast being the title of it.
Absolutely.
He speaks a lot about identity, and I think he really gets into process and why people do what they do. And, kind of, again, getting away from the snowflake stuff. It's like, you feel 80% today. you're going to have to show up anyway. Like the
Yeah.
whole self-care, and I might open up a Pandora's box here, but the whole self-care movement, I just think taught people, if you feel any less than 100%, you take a day, you need a day, I need a day. And I'm like, guys, that's not how you build resilience. Like I broke my femur 3 years ago, and it's like, I could have used that excuse the rest of my life. Oh, I can't, like I have a rod in my leg. I was scheduled to run a marathon 8 months after that femur, and it got canceled because of COVID. But I was like, fuck that. Like, I want my life back.
Yeah.
And it's like, does it hurt to run? Yeah. Is it pleasant? No, but I'm not going to only do things when I'm 100% feeling good. You're never going to make any move on anything. And frankly, you need to show yourself that you are able to show up when you don't feel 100%.
Man, I love that. That showing yourself. We define ourselves to ourselves by the choices that we make. I mean, I think I may have been on your podcast that I was talking about it. The first time my dad had me work a 10-hour day. And
yeah, you were.
We sent all the guys home, and then a 12-hour day, and then 24-hour day, and then more than that. And, like you learn, hey, wait a second, all my fingers and toes I can keep going. And then you kind of start to get like the sick pleasure of just seeing how far you can go.
Yeah.
Before you keel over, like, oh, it's going to suck. Put me in. It's honestly the normal days, they're almost too boring at some point.
Yeah.
At some point, like, oh, the shit's hitting the fan. Put me in, coach. I'm the right guy for this.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I don't know if it's the years of weightlifting or whatever, but you learn. That's what I always loved about the gym. You get to go to the edge and see what you got to do. I should do one more. Will I? You get challenged with that, and you're self-challenging constantly which way you're going to go. A lot of people doesn't translate into real life, but for me, it's all part of it. If you don't feel 100%, you should have a break glass in case of emergency place that you go to get yourself where you need to be. But taking time off, running away, be it for me, YouTube video. Call up a YouTube video that makes you feel like you can go a few rounds. Whatever you got to do, but figure it out, because you're responsible for you. If you let you out, if your excuse is good enough, you know what that means? You've literally bullshitted yourself to something that you feel like everybody else is going to buy into enough that you're going to get away with it.
Yeah, it's the justification equation. And I always say the justification equation always equals for you to do the thing you really want to do. That's not good for you. Oh, like, what's the big deal? Like, I felt that way when I was drinking. It's like, I work out, I eat right, I do this, I'm successful, whatever. Like, I can have a drink or two each night. Like, it was just justifying the habit that I wanted to do. And I was like, I gotta, it took me 40 some years, but like, I pretty much quit drinking in June. I didn't drink from June till end of this year. I've had 2 drinks, since then, but I was like, this doesn't need to be part of my life, anymore. But yeah, the justification equation on, and frankly, what's going to make you feel 100%? Going to do the thing when you don't feel 100% actually gives you the confidence, and you end up feeling better. Like you going into your covers or having a 6-hour binge episode on Netflix, never makes us feel good. You think that's going to change anything? Like, you're going to end up feeling worse about yourself. It's doing the work, doing the thing that feels difficult.
Yeah, doing the hard stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you develop the self-respect from. You learn that
Yeah.
you're the person that perseveres when things get hard. And that's an important thing for you to know about you. If you don't know that about you, if you don't know that you're the kind of person that pushes through, you're literally always going to get to the starting line and walk away. That's just that's a terrible way to live life.
Yeah,
So,
agree.
We've talked about the past. We've talked about the present a little bit. Let's talk about the future for just 1 second. What's next for you? I know you're starting another company. What are you up to, Anne? What are you brewing up?
Yeah, it's another fitness and wellness company called Ambition. I love our name. That's my favorite part about starting stuff. I love the branding, marketing, name, color palettes, all of those things, which I do myself. So Ambition will open in 8 weeks from now in Brooklyn Heights. And then we open 2 in Manhattan in April. And it's a 6,000 square foot studio where we have 4 different modalities, all group fitness. I'm a big believer in group fitness and community, which is why I never got into the digital at-home space. It's not for me. But I felt there was a real problem, like in urban markets where all boutique fitness, solidcore included, we offer one workout. And as you know, I work out at multiple different places because we have 600 muscles and you need to train as many of them as possible to continue to stay functional and healthy. And I wanted to be like, this is a more of a one-stop shop. You can get your athletic conditioning here. You can get your strength classes here. You can get your yoga inspired athlete class and your deep recovery class, so that people feel like they have a more complete fitness journey with us than they do with other places. And then we're doing, you know, events and speakers there too. I want people to really feel like ambition is a place where they go to challenge themselves, yes, in a physical standpoint, but that they're learning and growing and taking the culture of ambition into other areas of their life, and showing up in ways where, like, you know, yeah, that workout was hard, but I did it. So we're really building like a community and culture around just experts coming in, events that are going on to teach people around how to be their most optimized self. So we're excited. We have 8 weeks from yesterday.
I would not have guessed you were excited at all by your tone, and didn't pick that up at all. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would be excited too. It's a cool name. It's a cool idea. Ambition's a great word.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love it. So, all right. Opposite end of the spectrum here. 2 questions left.
Okay.
Yeah, almost survived. What do you do to unwind,
Anne? You know, it's interesting when people, you know, when people take vacations and they go get like blackout drunk for a week, right? I'm like, there's like something wrong with that picture of needing to go escape your life, that your life is so chaotic, or people live for the weekends. And again, it's like this escapism. I feel like I don't need a lot of unwinding. I keep my stress, and I think it's because of the lifestyle that I live, Josh, of, again, going to bed at 9:30. I drink a ton of water. I work out. Like, my stress level is a 3 or a 4 constantly, because I don't let it elevate and get to that level where I feel like, oh my God, I just need to like take a break from my life. I play a lot of beach volleyball, and I find for myself, like, I have to be so focused when I'm doing that it shuts off the rest of the world a little bit. I try not to be on my phone when I don't need to be. It's my goal by the end of the year, frankly, to not have email. Like, I'm like, if you want to text me, voice note me, or call me, I just think that's what works really well for me. And I have a staff of people, if they're looking at emails and updating me on what I need to be updated on. I don't like sitting behind a computer and working all day. So it's like, that's one of those things where, like, cool, I don't like doing that. I'm going to make sure I build a life where, like, I don't have to do that. So I think the trick is making sure your lifestyle on a pretty consistent basis is not something that you feel like you need to escape from. And I'm fortunate that I love my work. I love the people I work with. I'm in a very loving, fulfilling relationship. I like working out. I like moving my body. I like playing. I think playing, whatever that means for you, my boyfriend, and we have a very playful relationship. We joke around a lot. We laugh a lot. That's really important for my mental health and overall well-being. And I like surrounding myself with people who are also very playful.
Good stuff. I will give you a tip. If turning off the brain is a good one for you.
Yeah.
Best thing I ever found for doing it, and I did not think this would be the case, ballroom dancing.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
It's because it requires coordinating body movement with listening and timing to the music. It's bihemispherical in the brain. And so literally there's no bandwidth left for anything else. And so
from powerlifting to ballroom dancing, maybe that should be the name of your next book.
Yeah, let's go with that. See how that works. No, I definitely do my best to take and try a little bit from every side of the buffet if I can. And
love that.
Well, life is a smorgasbord, right? So
it is. And I think one of the pieces of advice you've asked, and I'll give another one. We always say things like, that's not who I am, or like, I'm not that kind of person. I think adding a phrase at the end of that is like, that's not who I am right now. Like, I'm not drinking right now. Like, we evolve and change. And sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves into like, and we do that with our political beliefs and everything else of like, nope, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-choice. And like, that's who I've been. And that's what my identity is. And like, I can't waver from that. So I've done that. Like, that's not who I am right now. Like, whether it's, if I took time off from work and like, I'm taking a break from business right now, it doesn't have to be a permanent identity.
Yeah, no, I mean, and figuring out what that balance looks like. I mean, there is a place for balance. And one of the things that and this is, I see this all the time. People come up with stuff that they've hung on to since they were a kid. Like they bought into something when they were told this thing when they were a kid, and
Yeah.
they've just hung on to it. You know, like I don't like dogs. I like something like that. Well, since when did you not like dogs? Have you ever met a dog you didn't that you liked? I mean,
Mhm.
or you know, I don't
Agreed.
like that kind of food or something like, or I'm this kind of person. And you know, like they don't question it ever. And so now you're 35, 40 years down the road, and you've never even checked to see whether or not that's actually true. And you've closed off this entire portion of life.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there was one that, you know, I don't like roller coasters. Well, as it turns out now I do like roller coasters quite a bit.
Yeah, that's growth, Josh. That's exactly it with growth. And we all have to learn. We've all got this emotional inheritance that we've received from our upbringing, our parents, and we have to decide as adults, it's our responsibility to be like, is this serving me? I had a real hard issue apologizing for many years of my life. And, you know, that frankly came from my mother, who still has a very difficult time apologizing, if I'm being honest. And I'm just like, that was learned behavior. And I don't like, you know, it's causing conflict in my relationships. And she does it to keep power, you know, over a situation. And that's what I started to do. And I'm like, this is such a horrible trait. And I don't want to be this person. I want to be able to apologize when I screw up and take accountability, but I had to go to therapy to, you know, to figure out those lessons and learning it and really take, again, responsibility for the fact that I was doing that.
Yeah, no, that again, that personal responsibility and accountability. I mean, there's so much stuff that you pick up as a kid from your parents. And at some point, you got to parse it out and figure it out, because it's almost going to be our default setting. You go one of two ways: that you saw it and you hated it as a kid, so you're like, I'm never going to be like that.
Yeah.
Or you saw it and you really didn't, you know, whatever. And next thing you know, you find yourself like defaulting to that because it's what you saw.
Yeah.
And so, like for me, I mean, I remember with my dad was very jealous with my mom, and my mom hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I just, from a kid, I was like, never going to be jealous. Just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
cool. You know, that's okay too. Just let me know. Let me know what we're on, and we're good. And almost to a fault to some extent, because it's like I hated it so much when I saw it,
Right.
that, you know, like you have to take and figure out how to dial it in a little bit. And so it's a thing. Last question. You survived. Where can people find you, Anne? If they're like, we want some more Anne. Where do folks find?
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully people want more Anne. Listen, my website's Easy Anne Mahlum, Instagram, Easy Anne Mahlum. I also, as you know, have a new podcast out that you've been on. It used to be called Choose 90. I'm changing the name to How To with Anne Mahlum. So again, my name is in that. It just felt more fitting for what people were talking about. And my podcast is all about learning from experts who have learned how to a certain something and can teach the listeners on how to do it as well. So I'm really excited about that. I enjoy those conversations and trying to get really granular with folks to really give actionable items to people on certain specific areas of their life.
Good stuff. Anne, thank you so much for being on. It's always fun whenever I get a chance to hang out with you. So thank you for giving me some of your time. And I'm sure everybody here really appreciates all you had to say.
Thanks, Josh. All the best to you in 2023.